In 1969, when the high school building program commenced with the loan from the World Bank, a budget of $9.5 million was agreed upon to build 50 schools, expand 4 teachers' college and UTech, as well as expanding the Jamaica School of Agriculture, known today as CASE. The $9.5 million was also budgeted to construct staff housing in rural areas, hire specialist consultants and engineers. The project ran over by an additional $9.5 million, resulting in a total of $19 million being spent on the program. The Ministry of Education was an embarrassment at this point. It was a complete wastage of public funds and total disregard for public resources. The contracts for the school building program were awarded by word of mouth. Contractors were instructed to begin working without any contract signage nor written approval. It was a procurement nightmare for the ministry, and all this came full circle in the 1970s. The Jamaican economy was averaging double-digit growth in the first few years of the 1970s, but after this calamity, it had never seen such numbers since. The Ministry of Education dropped the ball. Their negligence towards this education program haunts Jamaica to this day. This was the kickstart Jamaica needed to become a first world nation. This was the catapult we needed to rival the likes of Singapore. But unfortunately, the burial pit was already being dug, and this was the final nail in Jamaica's coffin to prosperity. 50 years later, and the education system have yet to recover from the corruption and wastage that took place in the late 60s, early 70s. Jamaica took on additional debt as well as steep fiscal tightening to see the project through to completion. But they needed more schools. They needed way more schools. See, the school building program was the first phase of a comprehensive educational reform intended to propel Jamaica forward. But those ambitions had to be sidelined, as the prospective funds that was supposed to finance the other phases was all directed towards the first phase. So essentially, only half the schools that could have been built were built. Instead of 50 high schools, 100 could have been built, and 2 times the number of primary schools. In 1972, there was a change in government, which began a mass enrollment campaign across the island. With a growing population, a primary school enrollment rate of 90%, a high school enrollment rate of 57%, and not enough high schools to meet the needs of the students, the learning outcome plummeted. Students' performance was unimpressive, and classrooms were severely overcrowded. It was very common to have 50 to 60 students in a class. Side note, I had 63 students in my grade 6 class, and that was in 2005. This led to extremely low productivity for the coming decades, as Jamaica's economic prosperity stagnated after the school building program, which to this day has not recovered. Jamaica was now in a predicament. It had a growing debt to repay, with a low-skilled labor force relying mainly on farming, bauxite and tourism for foreign exchange. Jamaica's contemporaries at the time progressed smoothly into the 4th Industrial Revolution, while 50 years later, our economy has gotten weaker and more reliant on remittance for sustenance. Poor governance leading back to the writing of the Constitution, the partisan origin of our political system, and our deep-rooted culture of corruption, where only a few benefit at the expense of the poor, has kept Jamaica and most of the developing world in a deprived state. What we have today in Jamaica is a reality likened to that of the colonial system, where a few elites enjoy the spoils of the nation while the masses live in deplorable conditions. Marcus Garvey's living conditions as a child was similar to many of ours growing up in Jamaica. While we may have had better access to schools and public health care facilities, the quality was still uninspiring. Running water and proper sewer systems remain a luxury for many. The middle class is slowly fading out, leaving just the rich and the poor, and the wealth imbalance is such that a majority of the population is working for a few elitists. Damien Jr. Gang said some very true but hurtful words. Sad to see the old slave mill, grinding slow but grinding still. Alright, so I know the documentary was both daunting and demotivating. Make you feel like there's no way forward for little Jamaica. But I'm never one to focus on just the problem. The solution resides in the United Independence Congress, the UIC. They are Jamaica's third officially registered political party. I've read their manifesto, I've heard them speak, and honestly, they're the motivation behind this documentary. They have the solutions Jamaica need right now and need to thrive. I know you may say Manley did some great things, Siaga did some great things for Jamaica. For instance, Manley created the NHT, Siaga created the SLB. But think about it this way. If you're building a house and you're digging the foundation, and the foundation is dug poorly, no matter how nice the door won't look, how nice the windows are, French windows, no matter how nice the roof is, the house still lean. Let's get our house straight. Let's get our home straight. I have more documentaries to come. The next one being Jamaica's banking cartel. You know I missed that one there. So until then, stay safe. One Jamaica, one nation, UIC. Wow, good.